Welcome to Deep Thought, the spirit of a group. Now, what is the spirit of a group? Whenever you bring a group of people together, it could be 2 people, it could be 1,000, you'll find an interesting phenomenon. You'll find a very interesting phenomenon. They will start to behave, and their mannerisms will tend to be on the same general, let me be clear about that, same general frequency. And what I mean by frequency, their language, their energetic language is going to be the same. The terms they use is going to be the same, the way they do things and look at things. That's the spirit of a group. Every group has, any subculture, any community, any ethnic group, they're always going to have a certain spirit. And that spirit isn't something that's imposed on them from above, but is what they do. Because it's all about the interactions within members of the group. Like if you have a protocol where the group, as they interact, are very blunt with each other, even cutting to each other, but it works for them in the sense that one is a language for them. 2, it creates a certain honesty, a certain trust. It creates a circle, it creates a boundary, but that's the spirit of it. And then another group might be totally different. Like you might have one group that's a martial group. It might be mostly male and, might have some women in there, but because it's they training in martial arts. I'll use that as an example. They'll have a certain spirit to them based on the members of that group, based on the cultures of that group. Like an example of that to give somebody an idea is anybody who's a football fan. We got football season is here. And, you get players who will go from different group to group. And you'll get some players, they might be cut or traded from a team, or, they go to another team and they'll say the culture was different. But that's because the spirit of the group is a certain way. And like I said, it could be a martial type of group where they're blunt with each other. It could be a group where they like to have fun and like to laugh, but that's the spirit of it. Now, and of course, you can bring that up to like racial groups, ethnic groups. There's a certain spirit there. And usually, like when I go into a group, any group, I stay real quiet. People usually, regardless of the group, people stay real quiet because there's a culture there. There is a culture. For example, I was at a retreat this past weekend. I mentioned it on my men's channel. And the interesting thing was, there was a certain how people interacted, what they talked about, because that spirit really is created by the personalities of the people, the shared experiences. Let me talk about that shared experience piece. That's very important. That creates a certain cohesion, because if you listen to when people talk, and y'all can do this yourself, get in a group of people who are familiar with each other, and they'll bring up, invariably, especially if it's in a group setting where there's more than 2 people, to relate to each other, they will bring up maybe an incident that happened within the group, or something that happened. It could be like a training type of atmosphere, something that happened. Like I used the martial arts group for an example. It could be something, a victory won, they remember the victory, or the loss, or some funny things that happened. But all of that creates a spirit, and it's an important concept, because that spirit actually moves it, because it's kind of a resonance on a resonance, and it causes the spirit, the group, it becomes like such a group spirit that it goes from what I thing to a group thing. because people won't, once they were part of that, that spirit is what is bring the cohesion, because the spirit has a certain rules and it develops a certain personality based on the members of that group. Whereas to the point, if you meet someone and they say they are part of the group, there's certain personality traits you can already ascribe to them. Now, of course, in any group, you got, you're going to have gregarious people, you're going to have quiet people, but it's still a certain amount of demeanor. I remember years ago, I was talking with a Muslim, and we were talking about, just the stuff that you'll see. Now, yes, there's some Muslims out there who do eat pork. They still going to eat pork or something, still going to drink some alcohol. But if you were to see that, knowing the tendencies of the group, if you were to see that, you'd be like, oh, they ain't doing that, because you already see a personality. And it's unfortunate. That's why you get some stereotypes, but you gotta say, what was the origin of it? That's because people who are part of that particular group, they had a certain spirit. I mean, they even have dress codes. Like, the people who are part of this particular group might dress a certain way. As people, I've always said, I've studied subcultures. And you'll see that it is to the point when if you see a certain person, you see certain markings, you already know. Because there will be some symbols to it. Because that group spirit, the spirit of the group, you could almost draw that group. Like, you could say, well, draw a picture of someone who would be in that group. And assuming you're a decent enough artist, you'll have the symbols on there, the way they wear their clothes, their adornments, everything. The way they wear their hair. And you can see it there. Now, I'm going to tell you what. I didn't want to get too deep. This is going to be one of my few short, deep thought videos. But it gets even deeper when you talk about the spirit of a group. So anyway, that's all I have for now. Peace and many blessings.